The alien students leaned forward, unable to look away. The hologram shifted, showing humans walking on the surface of their moon, planting flags into lifeless soil, their footprints eternal in the dust. They should not have reached the stars, the professor continued. They had no wings, no natural armor against the void. But their spirit was greater than the heavens themselves. Gasps rippled through the hall as the image expanded. Humans building vast stations above their world. Machines circling like guardians of steel. The students whispered in disbelief. They conquered space itself, one murmured. The professor's eyes glinted. No, not conquered. Not yet, he said. They endured it as they endured all things. But endurance is only the first step. The hologram shifted again. Faster now, showing humans sending signals across the stars. Machines launched into the black carrying messages. Tiny vessels sailing into infinity. Their purpose not survival, but discovery. Their curiosity is as dangerous as their will, the professor said. They are not content with one world. Not content with one sky. They must know, they must explore. They must expand. The students shivered. Their own species had found comfort in their homeworlds. Their skies, their empires, but humans were different. Humans sought more, always more. The hologram grew darker, revealing images of human weapons in space. Satellites, missiles, ships bristling with power. Do not think they left their wars behind, the professor said, his voice sharp as a blade. No, they carried them upward into the black. And what the galaxy fears most is not what humans build. It is what they are willing to use. The hologram froze on the image of a human soldier standing in orbit. The curve of Earth below him, his weapon glinting in the sun. The professor's words struck like thunder. Understand this, they do not merely survive. They dominate, they adapt their fury to every battlefield. Every frontier, every horizon, the alien students whispered nervously, their voices broken with dread. If they endured storms, predators, wars, even their own destruction, then nothing can stop them, one muttered. The professor's voice lowered to a whisper, colder than silence. And that is what the galaxy fears, because humanity does not stop, because once they rise, they never fall. The hologram zoomed out now, showing the galaxy itself, stars glittering in infinite rows. The professor's voice filled the chamber. Heavy final, every empire, every world, every civilization must reckon with one truth. When humanity turns its eyes to the stars, nothing will remain untouched, for they are not content with survival. They seek dominion. The students sat trembling, their scales damp with fear, their hearts racing. No storm, no predator, no enemy they had ever faced compared to the specter rising in their minds. A relentless, unbreakable, unstoppable humanity. One alien finally whispered the words that all were thinking. If they are children of a Deathworld, then what will they become among the stars? The professor let the silence stretch until it weighed on every chest. Then with eyes that burned like fire, he delivered the answer. They will become the nightmare of empires, the end of comfort, the fire that spreads until the galaxy itself trembles. That, young scholars, is what you fear, that is humanity. The hologram dimmed, leaving only the vast starlit dome above the chamber. The alien students sat motionless, breath shallow, their arrogance burned away. They had come expecting to mock a fragile species. Instead, they had glimpsed the shadow of their own doom. The professor's final words for the night echoed through the silence. You have seen them rise beyond their world. You have seen their hunger for the stars, and soon, you will see the truth the galaxy dares not speak. What happens when humanity meets the rest of us? The chamber darkened. The projection gone, but the fear lingered. The students left in silence, their minds haunted by visions of humans walking across stars with the same unyielding defiance they once showed against storms and beasts. The lesson was over, but the dread of what was to come had only just begun. The lecture hall was drowned in silence. The alien students sat frozen, their bodies stiff, their eyes wide, their thoughts tangled in fear. They had seen storms that devoured continents, predators that ruled jungles, wars that shattered nations, and humans who rose through every trial. They had seen humanity rise from ashes again and again, carrying their relentless will into the void of space. But the professor's expression now was heavier than ever. His voice when he spoke cut through the silence like a blade. You believe you understand them, he said slowly. You believe you have seen enough to grasp what they are. But you are wrong, for the final truth of humanity is not survival. It is not even conquest, it is something far more dangerous. The hologram flickered to life once more. The galaxy itself unfolded above the chamber, stars burning like scattered fire across an endless black canvas. At first it was beautiful, serene. Then points of light appeared. Colonies, stations, ships marked with the symbol of Earth. The students gasped. They were everywhere, expanding, growing, spreading like wildfire across the stars. "This is the truth you must carry with you," the professor said. "Humanity is not finished, not contained, not restrained. They are only beginning." The hologram zoomed closer to a human colony on a barren world. The land was dust and rock, the air thin and bitter. Yet humans walked across it, building homes, planting crops, raising towers from lifeless soil. "They thrive where nothing else can," the professor whispered. "They do not see death as an end. They see it as a challenge." Gasps echoed through the hall as the hologram shifted again. It showed a space battle, human ships clashing with alien raiders. The humans were outnumbered, their vessels scarred and burning. And yet they pressed forward, their weapons blazing, their determination unbroken. "They should have fled," one alien student murmured. Trembling, the professor's eyes hardened. "They do not flee, they fight until victory. Or until nothing is left to fight with." The projection shifted again, not war now, but something deeper. It showed humans standing in silence over the graves of their dead, tears in their eyes, grief in their hearts, and then it showed them rising, carrying the memories of the fallen like weapons in their hands. "This," the professor said, his voice almost reverent, "this is what the galaxy cannot understand. Their strength is not only in fury, not only in endurance, it is in love, in loyalty, in bonds that bind them tighter than steel. Every life lost becomes fuel for their will. Every sorrow becomes the fire that drives them onward." The alien students could barely breathe. Their own species avoided pain, avoided loss, avoided death. But humans embraced it, bore it, and turned it into strength. The hologram expanded again, showing Earth itself. Glowing blue against the stars, it was no longer fragile, no longer weak. It was the heart of something unstoppable. The professor's voice grew low, but carried through every corner of the chamber. "The galaxy calls it a death world, but that name is incomplete. For Earth did not simply kill, it forged, it tempered. It created the most dangerous species the stars have ever known." The violet-skinned student who had once mocked humanity rose slowly to his feet, his body trembling. His voice cracked as he whispered, "If they survived that world, if they endured all of this, what chance do we have against them?" The professor turned his gaze upon the student, his eyes glowing faintly in the starlight. His answer was heavy, final, and filled with grim certainty. "You have no chance," he said. "No empire, no species. No world has a chance once humanity decides to rise against it. Because they do not stop, because they do not break. Because they are the children of the death world." The hologram dimmed, fading until only the endless dome of stars remained above. The students sat trembling, their arrogance shattered, their pride stripped away. They had come expecting to laugh at a primitive world. Instead, they had seen the truth, a truth that burned in their minds like fire. The professor let the silence linger, let the weight of his words crush the last of their doubt. And then softly he delivered the final revelation. "Pray you never meet them in war. Pray you never stand against them. For if you do, you will learn what I have taught you today. You will learn that humanity is not a tale, not a myth, not a story. They are the storm, they are the fire. They are the nightmare that even death itself could not tame." The chamber went dark. The lesson ended. But the fear in the students' hearts would never fade. For now they understood why the galaxy whispered Earth's name, why it trembled at the word Deathworld, and why, above all, humanity was the one species no one could ever afford to underestimate. Still, the images did not stop. The hologram revealed machines of war, tanks grinding across broken landscapes, planes raining fire from the heavens, cities torn apart by shells. The professor's voice was sharp, each word a strike. They learned to kill not hundreds, but thousands. They learned to kill across oceans and skies. They turned the very progress of their minds into instruments of destruction. One student whispered, horrified, "No predator could match this. No storm could equal this." The professor's eyes glowed in the dim light. And still they were not finished. The hologram darkened, flickering into a blinding white light. An explosion consumed the screen. A roaring sun erupting above a city, The students screamed, shielding their eyes as the shockwave rolled across the chamber speakers. When the light faded, a wasteland appeared, ash drifting like snow over ruins where millions had lived. The professor's voice was low, heavy. This was their greatest weapon, the fire of the stars, stolen and unleashed upon themselves one instant, and entire cities burned one strike and the world trembled. The silence in the hall was unbearable. The alien students could barely breathe, their minds reeling. If humanity could do this to their own kind, what would they do to others? The violet-skinned student who once mocked Earth whispered, trembling, They are monsters," but the professor shook his head. "No," he said, his voice cutting like steel. "They are not monsters, they are human. And that is far more dangerous." The hologram showed humans emerging from the ashes, rebuilding their cities, planting their fields, forging new tools. Time and again they destroyed, and time and again they rose. "That," the professor said, "is their true horror. Not that they kill, not that they burn, but that no matter how much they fall, they always rise again." Stronger than before, the chamber was silent, every alien trembling. Their pride shattered, their confidence gone. What kind of species could endure such endless cycles of destruction and still thrive? What kind of will could survive its own hatred, its own fire, its own hunger for power? The hologram dimmed, leaving only the stars above the dome. The professor's final words fell like thunder into the silence. "You have seen them fight the world. You have now seen them fight themselves, and soon you will see them fight the galaxy." The projection snapped off. The hall was plunged into shadow. The students sat frozen in silence. Their hearts pounding, the lesson had ended. But the dread had only just begun. The chamber remained dark after the last image of fire and ruin. The alien students sat frozen, their hearts pounding, their minds struggling to accept what they had just seen. Humanity had torn itself apart in wars that scorched the earth and scarred the skies. And yet the professor's voice broke the silence once more, low, steady, unyielding. "You think this should have been the end," he said. "You think they should have fallen into dust? Their species shattered by their own hand." His eyes glinted in the faint starlight above. "But you are wrong, because humanity's greatest weapon is not its fire, nor its steel, nor its cunning. It is their spirit, and that does not break." The hologram flickered back to life, revealing a ruined city, its towers reduced to rubble, its streets torn and blackened by war. But through the smoke and ash, shapes began to move, humans scarred, starving, crawling from the wreckage, their faces hollow but their eyes burning with the same fire as before. "They rose," the professor whispered. From ashes they rose. Time and again they rebuilt what was lost. They learned from the scars they carried. And they endured. The hologram shifted, racing through centuries of rebirth. Fields tilled again. Houses built from ruins. Bridges raised, ships launched, each age born from fire. Each step forward stronger than the last. The students leaned closer, unable to look away. It made no sense. No species should have survived such devastation. And yet the humans did more than survive, they thrived. "Understand this," the professor said. "Where others surrender, humanity begins. Where others collapse, humanity rebuilds. Where others die, humanity rises." The hologram shifted once more, showing not just villages or cities, but entire nations. Machines roared through streets. Towers of glass and steel rose higher than the skies. Lights glittered like constellations born upon the earth. The alien students gasped at the sight. "Impossible," one murmured. "How could they create beauty from ruin?" The professor's voice sharpened. "They have no choice, for destruction is their shadow. But creation is their answer. Every time their world burned, they forged it anew. Greater than before." The projection zoomed out, showing Earth glowing at night, cities blazing like fireflies across the continents. It was no longer the fragile nursery world the students had mocked. It was alive, vibrant, fierce. And then the image shifted again. Now rockets thundered upward, trails of fire cutting through the heavens. Humans stood at the edge of their world, eyes fixed on the stars. They were not content with Earth, the professor said. They were not satisfied with survival. They sought the skies, they reached for the void. They claimed the stars themselves. The students gasped as the hologram revealed humans floating in black space, clad in fragile suits, their bodies drifting above their planet. It seemed madness. Soft creatures standing against the endless void. And yet there they were, clinging to machines, building stations, planting their flag on the moon. "Look well," the professor said. his voice heavy with awe and warning. From a death world they rose, and when that world could no longer contain them, they carried their relentless will into the heavens. The alien students whispered among themselves, fear rippling through every row. One asked, trembling, "Professor, if nothing can stop them, what will they become?" The professor's gaze was cold. "They will become what none of you can imagine," he said, "because every wound they suffer becomes strength. Every loss becomes a lesson. Every scar becomes a reminder. They are tempered by suffering in ways you cannot comprehend." The hologram showed disasters, plagues that swept across continents, famines that hollowed millions, storms that drowned cities, and with each horror humans fell, only to rise again. The images showed hospitals filled, then rebuilt, crops withered, then replanted, cities drowned, then reborn from the depths. "They do not stop," the professor said. "They cannot stop. They have become the embodiment of endurance itself." The alien students could no longer hide their terror. They shifted in their seats, their eyes darting, their thoughts filled with shadows. If a species could endure endless storms, endless wars, endless suffering, and still rise, what would they be capable of against the stars? The professor's voice grew quieter, but sharper. This is what the galaxy fears most. Not their weapons, not their strength, not their fury, but their refusal to die, because no matter what strikes them, no matter how deep the wound, humanity always rises, and every time, they rise stronger. The hologram froze on an image of a human standing beneath the stars, his hand lifted toward the sky, his eyes filled with defiance and hunger. The professor let the silence stretch, let the weight of the image burn into every student's mind. Then with words that cut like thunder, he ended, "You have seen them fight their world. You have seen them fight themselves, and now you see them rise beyond both. This is humanity's relentless spirit, and it will carry them further than you dare imagine." The hologram faded into darkness, leaving only the endless stars above. The alien students sat frozen, hearts pounding, every thought tangled with awe and dread. And when the silence became unbearable, the professor spoke again, his final words a blade of warning. "And soon, young scholars, you will see what happens when that spirit turns its eyes not only to survival, but to conquest." The chamber went silent once more, and the promise of the next lesson hung over them like a storm waiting to break. The silence in the lecture hall was unbearable. The alien students sat stiff in their seats, their eyes wide, their voices lost. They had seen humanity endure storms, predators, wars, and even themselves. But the professor's expression was darker now, his voice heavy with warning. "You believe you have grasped the truth of humanity," he said slowly. "You believe their resilience, their endurance, their relentless spirit is the end of the story." He turned toward the hologram, his hand hovering over its controls like a judge about to deliver a sentence. "But you are wrong. For humanity's rise did not end with survival. It began with it." The hologram flickered alive again, showing Earth glowing in the blackness of space, cities burning bright against the night, and then fire thundered upward, rockets tearing through the sky. Humans rose beyond their cradle, carrying their hunger into the stars. They spread into the void, the professor said. They carried their unbreakable will across the black seas of space. They built machines to carry them where their bodies could not. And with every step, the galaxy watched in silence. "Understand this," the professor said, his voice a blade cutting through the silence. "Earth is not merely dangerous, it is lethal, relentless, merciless, but humanity has not only survived it, they have mastered it." The chamber pulsed with unease. Students shifted in their seats, their eyes wide, their hearts racing. They had come expecting weakness, expecting to laugh at a primitive species. Instead, they were shown storms that could kill worlds, beasts that could devour armies, and humans who faced them both with fire in their eyes. The professor let the hologram spin slowly, the planet gleaming like a jewel of death above them. He stepped back, his voice dropping to a whisper that still carried across the hall. "And this is only the beginning of what Earth holds." The silence was unbearable, thick with fear and awe. No one dared speak, no one dared laugh. Every student felt the weight of the word Deathworld, and for the first time, they began to wonder if the stories they had heard were true. The hologram dimmed, leaving Earth a shadow floating in the dark. The professor's eyes glowed faintly in the silence as he spoke once more. "In the next lesson," he said, "you will see not just the world, but the humans themselves. He paused, his gaze sharp as fire. "And you will understand why the galaxy whispers their name with both fear and respect." The projection snapped into darkness, and the students were left staring at the empty air. Hearts pounding, the lesson was not over. It had only just begun. The hologram flared back to life, bathing the lecture hall in a cold, white glow. Alien students leaned forward, their faces pale, their bodies tense. What they had seen already had unsettled them. Storms, quakes, beasts. Reason? But now the professor's tone grew heavier still. "You have seen Earth's cruelty," he said, his voice echoing through the chamber. "But now you will see the most impossible truth of all, how humans rose to defy it." The hologram shifted, zooming into an ancient forest swaying under gray skies. There in the shadows, small figures moved, frail-looking, bare-skinned, carrying nothing but sharpened sticks and fire held in trembling hands. The students leaned closer, squinting at the tiny forms. "These are the first humans," the professor explained. "By every law of survival, they should have perished within days. Their skin tears at a claw's touch, their bones break easily. They have no venom, no armor, no wings, no fangs, and yet they endured." The hologram flickered with images. Wolves prowling the tree line, their glowing eyes fixed on the humans. A pack lunged, howling with hunger, but the humans did not flee. Instead, they lit branches aflame, raising fire into the night, the flames dancing like spirits. Wolves snarled, snapping at the edge of the fire. But they did not cross, the students gasped. They held back predators. "With light?" one whispered. The professor nodded. Where other prey ran, humans stood. Where others hid, humans fought. Fire was their first weapon, and with it, they claimed the night itself. The hologram spun forward in time, showing vast icy plains where winds howled and snow swallowed the land. Figures wrapped in animal skins trudged through blizzards, carrying spears tipped with stone. Beside them thundered beasts of ice, mammoths. Towering, armored with fur and tusks, the aliens recoiled. No one could hunt such giants," a student gasped. But the hologram showed humans working together, surrounding the mammoth, their spears striking as one, their shouts rising against the storm. The mammoth fell, shaking the earth, and the humans stood over it, triumphant. "Do you see?" the professor asked. "Alone they are weak. Together they are unstoppable. They learned to hunt the hunters. They learned to strike as a pack more fearsome than any predator." The violet-skinned student who had once mocked Earth pressed his hands to his chest, struggling to breathe. They conquered the monsters of their own world," he whispered. The professor's gaze did not soften. "They did more than conquer," he said. "They consumed them, clothed themselves in their skins, carved weapons from their bones, and grew stronger from their flesh." The hologram changed again, showing deserts stretching under a merciless sun. Sandstorms raged, swallowing entire horizons, yet still humans walked, carrying water across lands that even machines would fail to cross. Everywhere death ruled, humanity followed, the professor said. Where the air burned, they endured. Where the ice crushed, they endured. Where predators reigned, they endured. They endured because they refused to yield. The alien students whispered among themselves now, fear rippling through every row. Their own species had grown in comfort, in safety, in gentle environments that nurtured them. But humans had been shaped by war against nature itself. One alien, his voice trembling, asked, "Professor, how many of them survived such trials? Surely their numbers were few." The professor turned, his eyes glinting under the starlight above the dome. "Few? No," he said. "They multiplied, they spread, they grew, until Earth itself could not contain their hunger." The hologram shifted again, showing rivers alive with crocodiles, jungles thick with venom, mountains jagged with ice, and in every scene, humans, pressing forward, never stopping, never surrendering. The images were relentless: battles against predators, hunts in endless snow, survival in deserts, villages built beside deadly rivers. Again and again, one truth burned brighter: humanity never gave up. The professor's voice lowered to a whisper, pulling the students closer. "This is their gift," he said. "Their bodies are fragile, their weapons crude, but their spirit is unbreakable. When death itself came, they did not bow. They fought until even death stepped aside." The silence in the hall grew heavy. Every student now felt the weight of the revelation pressing against their hearts. This species was not meant to exist. And yet it did, not as victims, but as victors. The hologram froze on an image of a human standing over a slain predator, spear in hand, snow falling around him, his eyes hard as stone. The professor's voice cut through the silence like a blade. Understand this. Earth forged them as its weapon. Every storm, every beast, every famine tempered them like iron in flame. And now they stand as the sharpest edge the galaxy has ever known. The hologram dimmed, the image fading into shadow. The professor's final words lingered in the silence, and what you have seen tonight is only the beginning. For humanity's greatest struggle was not with nature, but with itself. The chamber fell into stunned silence. The students sat frozen, breathless, every mind caught between awe and dread, and as the hologram faded to black, the promise of the next lesson echoed through the hall like thunder. The hologram shimmered back to life, filling the great hall with a soft glow. The alien students leaned forward, their bodies tense, their eyes fixed. They had seen humans defy storms, hunt predators, and conquer a world that should have destroyed them. But the professor's face was grim, his tone darker than before. "You believe you have seen the worst," he said, his voice carrying across the silent chamber. But Earth's most terrifying force was not its storms, nor its beasts, nor its endless trials. It was humanity itself. The hologram shifted, revealing a battlefield of dust and fire. Hundreds of humans clashed with crude weapons, shields shattering, spears piercing, screams echoing into the night. Blood stained the earth as men and women fell, but still they fought on, refusing to yield. The alien students recoiled, their voices trembling in disbelief. They slaughter each other?" One whispered. The professor's gaze hardened. "Yes." And with a fury unmatched by any predator, the projection blurred, skipping through time, showing wars of stone, then bronze, then iron, armies clashing in waves, banners snapping in the wind, fire consuming cities. Their enemies were no longer beasts, the professor continued. Their enemies were themselves. The students stared, horrified as soldiers in gleaming armor marched in formation, their weapons glittering under the sun. Villages burned behind them, smoke rising into the sky. The cries of the fallen filled the chamber's speakers, echoing against the walls until even the most arrogant student shivered. "Why?" one of them demanded, his voice sharp with confusion. "Why would they kill their own?" The professor's answer was cold. For power, for territory, for belief, for reasons as vast and endless as their ambition. The hologram zoomed in on a scene of two human leaders, their armies facing each other across a barren plain. Thousands of soldiers waited in silence, their hands tight on their weapons. Then at a signal, the ground shook as they charged. The two armies collided and chaos consumed the land. The alien students gasped as they watched men and women cut down their own kind with ruthless efficiency. The professor's voice was grim. "This is humanity's curse, the same will that defied nature, the same fury that slew beasts. They turned upon themselves, and the galaxy should fear it." The hologram flashed forward again. Centuries passing in moments, now steel thundered, cannons roared, gunfire cracked like storms. Humans had discovered fire and steel, and they forged them into weapons of death. The battlefield was no longer swords and spears, but endless volleys of fire, black smoke covering the sky. Alien students covered their ears as the sound shook the chamber, their bodies trembling at the ferocity of it all. The lecture hall was alive with chatter. Rows of alien students filled the chamber, their voices a rising wave of amusement and arrogance. They were young, bright, and proud of their worlds, each believing their species superior in wisdom and strength. Today, they thought, would be an easy lesson, another trivial discussion about some primitive planet, far from the shining core of the galaxy. The walls of the hall curved upward in smooth arcs of silver and glass. Above them, a vast dome revealed the stars themselves, glittering like jewels scattered across black velvet. In the center stood the professor, an elder of his kind, his posture rigid, his eyes sharp. He raised a clawed hand, and slowly the chatter faded. The hum of the great holographic projector filled the silence with a low vibration. The image of a pale blue world flickered to life above the platform. Its oceans shimmered, its clouds swirled, its continents glowed in faint hues of green and gold. "Behold," the professor began, his voice calm yet heavy with something the students could not name. "This is Earth." A ripple of laughter broke through the rows. One student with violet skin leaned toward his companion and whispered loudly enough for all to hear. "A child's world, yes? Soft air, open water, nothing but weak life crawling in the mud." Another chuckled. A nursery planet, fragile and tame. The hall filled with laughter. Arrogant, dismissive, the professor did not smile. His expression remained cold, his gaze sharp as a blade. "Do you think it tame?" he asked quietly. The students fell silent. Surprised by the weight in his tone, he turned toward the hologram. Adjusting its rotation, the planet spun slowly, revealing storms the size of continents, oceans writhing with currents, frozen poles of merciless ice. "This world," the professor said, "is not fragile, it is not weak. It is not tame." He let the words sink in, each one sharp as a stone dropped into water. "It is called the Deathworld." The word struck the room like a bolt of lightning. A wave of unease rippled through the students. They shifted in their seats, exchanging glances of disbelief. Some smirked nervously, others frowned, but none dared laugh now. The professor's eyes scanned the hall, pausing on each young face. "You find it hard to believe." "I see," he said softly. "As well you should. For nothing in your sheltered lives has prepared you for what this world is." The hologram shifted, zooming in, revealing clouds boiling with violent storms. Lightning splitting the sky in furious chains, the rumble of thunder filled the speakers. Echoing through the chamber, several students flinched, as if the sound itself carried weight. "Imagine," the professor continued, "a world where storms rage without mercy, where oceans swallow entire coasts, where the ground quakes and tears apart cities of stone." The hologram trembled as earthquakes rippled across its surface, mountains rising, volcanoes spilling fire into the sky. "And yet, life clings to this world," he whispered. "Not weak life, not fragile life, but life that fights with tooth and claw for every breath." The violet-skinned student from earlier raised a trembling hand. But surely only beasts could endure such cruelty," he said, his voice faltering. The professor's lips curved, not into a smile, but into something colder. "Beasts endure, yes," he said, "but beasts are not the rulers of Earth." With a flick of his hand, the hologram shifted again. Now it showed towering forests alive with motion, rivers choked with predators, deserts burning under an unforgiving sun, and in each scene one figure appeared, small, fragile-looking, skin bare of scales or fur, humans walking through snow, crossing deserts, hunting in jungles, their eyes burning with fire. Gaps filled the hall. "What are they?" one student whispered, his voice laced with dread. The professor's voice carried across the chamber, sharp and final. "They are the children of this death world." The students leaned forward, their arrogance dissolving, replaced by curiosity, by fear. The hologram lingered on the image of a human standing before a storm, wind tearing at his clothes, rain lashing his face, and yet he stood, unbroken, eyes defiant against the fury of nature itself. "This lecture," the professor said slowly, "is not a tale of beasts nor of storms, nor of poisoned air. This lecture is about humanity, and why they must never be underestimated." The silence was complete now. No one laughed, no one smirked. Every student felt a weight in their chest, an unease that only grew with each passing breath. The professor let the silence stretch until it ached. Then softly he spoke again. "Listen well, for what you learn today will shape your future, and perhaps save your lives." The hologram dimmed, shrinking into darkness until only the stars above remained. The air in the hall felt heavier, the silence deeper, and as the students sat frozen, hearts pounding, the professor's final words hung in the air like a blade suspended above them. "Earth is no nursery world," he said, his voice cold as iron. "It is the cradle of a species born in fire and blood, and their story has only just begun." The hologram spun slowly above the professor's platform, glowing blue and white against the vaulted ceiling of the hall. The alien students leaned forward now, their earlier arrogance gone, replaced by unease that crept like frost along their spines. Earth floated before them, serene at first glance. But beneath that calm beauty hid something far darker. The professor's hand traced a slow arc, and the hologram shifted, clouds thickened, storms unfurled like claws across the planet's face, and lightning tore through the sky in jagged veins of fire. The sound followed, thunder so deep and violent that it shook the air of the chamber, rattling the very bones of those who listened. A few students flinched, their scales shivering, their wings twitching, their eyes wide with disbelief. "This is no gentle world," the professor intoned. "On Earth, storms rise with fury, swallowing coasts and tearing apart the land itself. Hurricanes roar across oceans with winds strong enough to strip stone from mountains. Tornadoes descend without warning, shredding forests, shattering homes. and hurling creatures into the sky like dust. The image zoomed closer, showing a furious whirl of clouds spinning over a great ocean, waves rising as high as towers. Imagine, the professor whispered, living beneath this sky, never knowing when death might fall from the heavens. The students shivered. On their homeworlds, weather was controlled, tamed long ago with technology and shielded cities. But here, on Earth, no such mercy existed. Life endured or it perished. The hologram flickered again, shifting to jagged mountains trembling as the ground cracked open. Molten fire spilled upward, rivers of glowing death devouring forests and villages alike. The ground itself betrays them, the professor said. Earthquakes tear apart entire cities. Mountains rise and fall in fire, and the air fills with poison ash. Gasps filled the chamber. One student, his skin patterned in stripes of green, whispered in awe, "But surely, no world could support life under such torment." The professor turned his gaze on him, his eyes like sharpened steel. "And yet, this world does." The hologram zoomed deeper still, diving into vast jungles thick and wet with shadows. The sounds of life filled the air, shrieks, howls, roars. 1,000 voices of predators hunting in the dark. The image showed a serpent coiled in silence, scales glinting as it struck with lightning speed, sinking venom into its prey. Then a feline beast lunged from shadows, claws slicing, fangs crushing bone. Predators everywhere, hunting, killing, feeding. "Every shadow on Earth may conceal death," the professor said, his voice low. "Every river may hold teeth. Every tree may drip poison. Every bite of food may carry death within it." The students recoiled as the images flashed. Insects swarming over prey, flesh dissolved by toxins, plants sprouting thorns sharper than blades. One alien muttered in horror, "It is a nightmare world." The professor's tone grew colder. "And yet it is home." The hologram shifted again, showing endless deserts burning under the sun, the heat shimmering until the land itself seemed to bleed. Across the sand, frail figures moved. Humans, wrapped in cloth, their faces hidden, carrying water, crossing lands where even machines would fail. "Look," the professor said, "they do not flee this world. They do not surrender to it. They adapt, they endure. They walk where others would die." The students could not look away. Their arrogance had turned to silence. Their silence to fear, because with every storm, every quake, every predator, one truth grew clearer. No other species in the galaxy had been born into such chaos. And still, Earth was alive, rich, overflowing with life that clawed and fought and refused to yield. The violet-skinned student who had mocked Earth earlier raised a trembling hand. "But, Professor," he stammered, "surely these humans, they must be fragile, they must hide, they must be prey." The professor let the question linger in the air. Then slowly he shook his head. "They are prey," he admitted. "But they are also hunters." The hologram shifted, showing humans crouched in tall grass, spears in hand, eyes locked on creatures larger and stronger than themselves. They moved together, surrounding their prey, and when the moment came, they struck, swift, precise, merciless. The image froze on the sight of humans standing victorious over a beast twice their size, their faces painted with blood and triumph.